My ex-wife's sister took me to an open house on a Sunday afternoon in October, and before I had even finished wiping my shoes on the mat, she looped her arm through a man I had never seen before and told the realtor, "My boyfriend and I love it." Where do we sign? I stood in the entryway of a 4-bedroom colonial on Merritt Lane with my car keys still in my hand, and I did the only thing my body would let me do. I laughed. It came out short and confused. The kind of laugh you make when someone tells a joke you don't understand at a dinner party and you're trying to be polite about it. Nobody laughed with me. The realtor, a woman in her 40s with a clipboard held against her chest like a shield, glanced at me, and then at Delaney, and then at the man beside Delaney. And I watched her make a small professional decision to pretend I wasn't there. The man beside Delaney was not looking at me. He was looking at the crown molding above the doorframe with the mild, distant interest of someone who has already decided he owns the place. "Delaney," I said. My voice came out too even. "What are you doing?" Delaney turned her head toward me, but not her body. Her body stayed angled toward the man. She said, "Marcus, be a sweetheart and wait in the sitting room. We won't be long." I did not go to the sitting room. I stood in the entryway and I watched Delaney, my ex-wife's younger sister, the woman who had brought a lasagna to my apartment 3 weeks after the divorce was finalized and told me I was still family and always would be, casually and pleasantly introduce a stranger to the realtor as her boyfriend in a house she had asked me that morning at 8:42 to please come look at with her, because she trusted my judgment on foundations and she didn't want to buy a money pit, and could I just, as a favor, one favor, spend an hour with her walking through it. The realtor said, "Wonderful. Let me get the disclosure packet. We can go over the numbers in the kitchen." "Cash offer, correct?" Delaney said, "Cash offer, correct." She said it while looking at me. I want to tell you I understood what was happening. I did not. What I understood was that my hand, the hand still holding my car keys, was very steady, steadier than it had any business being. The way your body goes when it has decided, without consulting your brain, that you are going to need to be careful about the next several minutes of your life. 2 hours earlier, Delaney had called me from the front seat of her car in the parking lot of the coffee place we used to go to on Sundays when my daughter was small and my marriage still worked. She had said her fiancé, whose name she had not mentioned in any of the 6 times we'd spoken since summer, was out of town on business and she needed a second opinion on a house, and I was the only person she trusted with real estate. I had asked, on the phone, whether her fiancé knew about the appointment. She had said, "Marcus, please, I need you to do this for me. It's important." I had said yes because I had said yes to Delaney for 11 years. I had said yes because when Rebecca and I split, Delaney was the only one on that side of the family who had still returned my calls. I had said yes because Delaney was the aunt my 6-year-old daughter drew pictures of at school, in the crayon family portraits where she put a little heart above Delaney's head that she did not put above her mother's. You do not say no to that woman. Not lightly. Not without a reason. I had my reason now. I turned to the realtor. I said, "I'm sorry. There's been a misunderstanding. I'd like to speak with Delaney privately for a moment." The realtor's smile did the small flickering thing that professional smiles do when they realize the room they're standing in has a problem in it. She said, "Of course. I'll be in the kitchen. Take your time." She walked away. The man beside Delaney did not walk away. He put his hand casually on the small of Delaney's back. I said to him, "Would you excuse us?" He did not move his hand. He said mildly, "Delaney, do you want him here?" Delaney said, "It's fine. Preston, give us a minute." Preston, his name was Preston. I filed it away the way you file away the license plate of a car that has just cut you off. Because you don't know yet whether you're going to need it, but you know already that you might. Preston walked into the sitting room. He did not close the door behind him. I said to Delaney, quietly, you need to tell me what's happening. Right now. Because whatever this is, I am not going to be part of it. Delaney looked at me, and her face did something I had never seen it do in 11 years. Her mouth went thin and pleasant. Her eyes went flat. She said, Marcus, you are already part of it. And if you make a scene right now, the only person you're going to hurt is your daughter. So do us both a favor and go sit in the car and wait. Then she turned, and she walked into the kitchen after the realtor, and she did not look back. I did not go sit in the car. I walked out of the front door, and I stood on the porch of the Colonial on Merritt Lane, and I called my lawyer. My lawyer's name is Aaron Feld. He is 61 years old. He sleeps 4 hours a night, and he answers his phone on weekends because he has, in his own words, no hobbies and no wife and nothing better to do. He picked up on the second ring. I said, Aaron, I need you to tell me if it's possible for someone to buy a house using my name without me knowing. Aaron was quiet for a beat. Then he said, Marcus, where are you right now? I said, I'm on a porch on Merritt Lane. My ex-wife's sister just called a stranger, her boyfriend, in front of me and told the realtor they're making a cash offer on a house I have never seen before. Aaron said, get in your car, drive away. Right now. Don't say another word to anyone in that house. I'll call you back in 20 minutes. I got in my car. I drove 3 blocks. I pulled over in front of a middle school playground where 2 kids were kicking a soccer ball around in windbreakers. I put my forehead on the steering wheel. I sat like that for a long time. When Aaron called back, he did not say hello. He said, Marcus, I need you to listen to me very carefully. I just made 2 phone calls. There is a mortgage pre-approval on file with a lender in your name for $820,000. It was submitted 6 weeks ago. The co-applicant is a man named Preston Kettering. The property listed is the address you just gave me. I did not say anything. Aaron said, there is also, and I want you to sit with this, an LLC that was registered in Delaware 4 months ago. Your name is on the operating agreement. You are listed as a 50% member. The other 50% belongs to Preston Kettering. The stated business purpose is real estate holdings. I said, I have never heard of an LLC. I have never signed anything. Aaron said, I know. I believe you. But I want you to understand what's happening. Whoever set this up did it well. Your signature is on the operating agreement. It's a good forgery, good enough that a lender took it. And if that house closes on Friday, which is what the pre-approval indicates, you are going to wake up on Saturday morning as the co-owner of a mortgage you cannot pay, on a house you have never lived in, with a business partner you have never met. And the second the payments start to miss, which they will, your credit is going to collapse in a way that a family court judge is going to notice. I said, the custody hearing is Monday. Aaron said, I know. That's why I'm not letting you off this phone until you're at my office. Drive here now. And Marcus, do not answer any calls or texts from Delaney or from anyone in Rebecca's family between now and the moment you walk through my door. My phone was already buzzing in my hand. It was Delaney. I did not answer. She called again. She called a third time. Then she texted. The text said, Marcus, whatever you think this is, you are wrong. Please come back inside. I will explain everything. Do not do anything until we talk. Please, for your daughter. for my daughter. She had put my daughter in the second sentence, the way you put a hostage in a note. I took a screenshot. I forwarded it to Aaron. I drove to his office. Aaron's office is on the fourth floor of a building with an elevator that has been broken since June. I took the stairs. When I walked in, Aaron was already at his desk with 2 legal pads and a laptop open, and he was not alone. There was a woman in her 30s sitting across from him in a gray sweater, and she stood up when I came in and shook my hand. She said, "Marcus, I'm Yvonne Park. I do forensic financial work for Aaron on cases like this." He called me on the way to the office. "I hope that's all right." I said, "It's all right." She said, "Then let's start. And I need you to answer some questions truthfully, even if the answers are embarrassing. This is not the moment to protect anyone." I said, "Ask," she said, "has anyone had access in the last 12 months to a physical space where you keep documents? Tax returns, old pay stubs, anything with your social security number on it." I thought about it. I said, Delaney. Delaney has been at my apartment. She helped me pack when I moved. She was there over the summer when my daughter stayed. She has, I think, a spare key. I gave her one when I moved in case there was an emergency with Lily and Rebecca couldn't reach me. Yvonne wrote it down. She said, "Has your ex-wife had access?" I said, "Rebecca has not been in my apartment since we split." Yvonne said, "That you know of." I did not answer that. Yvonne said, "One more. When did the divorce finalize?" I said, 14 months ago. She said, "And when did Delaney start being especially helpful? Bringing food, checking in, offering to watch Lily?" I said, "About a year ago." Yvonne looked at Aaron. Aaron looked at me. Aaron said, "Marcus, I don't want to jump to conclusions, but I need you to consider a possibility. It is possible that this did not begin 6 weeks ago when the mortgage was filed. It is possible that this began 14 months ago when the divorce finalized. And it is possible that the person on the other side of it is not just Delaney." I said, "Rebecca," Aaron said, "I'm not saying that. I'm saying we have to consider it. Because if the sister is running the operation and the ex-wife knew nothing, the exposure ends when we prove the forgery. But if the ex-wife is involved and she is coordinating with her sister and there is a custody hearing on Monday, Marcus, that is a different case. That is a case where someone has spent 14 months building a financial paper trail that makes you look like a man who commits mortgage fraud 3 days before a judge decides how often you see your daughter." I did not say anything for a while. Then I said, "What do I need to do?" Yvonne said, "You need to give me consent to pull every account in your name. You need to give me your login credentials for your bank, your credit cards, your retirement, and your email. You need to hand me your phone so I can back up every message you have with either sister from the last 2 years. And you need to do it all in the next hour. Because if the closing is scheduled for Friday, we have 4 business days to build a wall around you and I am going to need every minute of them." I gave her consent. I gave her the credentials. I gave her the phone. Yvonne worked for 3 hours in Aaron's conference room, while Aaron and I sat in his office and drank very bad coffee out of very small cups. When she came back, she was carrying a printout. Her face was doing the thing that professional faces do when they have found something they were half hoping not to find. She said, "Marcus, I want to walk you through what I have, and I want you to breathe while I do it." She spread the printout on Aaron's desk. She said, 1. There are 3 credit cards in your name that you did not open. They are all recent. The billing addresses are a P. O. Box in a neighboring county. The balances are low, which is deliberate. Someone is building a payment history to make you look creditworthy. She said, 2. The LLC in Delaware is real. Your signature is on it. So is a business bank account in Ohio with a balance of $12,000. The deposits into that account came from a wire transfer from a personal account belonging to Preston Kettering. The pattern is consistent with a shell operation designed to make it look like you and he are business partners. She said, 3. This is the one I want you to sit with. I pulled your email. I filtered for anything from Rebecca. 2 months ago, she sent you an email asking for your new employer's HR contact so she could update Lily's insurance paperwork. You gave it to her. 3 weeks later, someone using that HR contact requested an income verification letter in your name. That letter is what the mortgage lender used to approve the pre-approval. I stared at the printout. I said, Rebecca asked me for that email address. Yvonne said, Rebecca asked you for that email address. Erin said, quietly, that's the link. If she asked, and you gave, and the letter came through that channel, then we have a documented line from Rebecca to the fraud. It doesn't prove intent, but it proves access. And in a custody hearing on Monday morning, access is enough. I sat back in the chair. I thought about the night, 13 months ago, when Delaney had shown up at my apartment with a lasagna and told me I was still family. I thought about the way she had said it, quietly, kindly, like she meant it. I thought about how she had asked, that night, whether I was doing okay, and whether the apartment lease was in my name, and whether I had figured out the paperwork on the 401k rollover yet. I had thought, at the time, that she was being nice. Being helpful. The way an aunt is helpful. I thought about the pictures Lily drew, the little heart above Delaney's head. I said, how does this end? Erin said, it ends with the closing not happening on Friday. It ends with a police report filed tomorrow morning. It ends with Yvonne's affidavit in front of the judge on Monday. And it ends, if we do this right, with Delaney and Preston in handcuffs before the ink is dry on the deed. I said, and Rebecca. Erin said, Rebecca is harder. But I have been doing this for 36 years, Marcus, and I promise you, if she was in this room when it was planned, we will find her fingerprints on the walls. I did not go home that night. Aaron put me in a hotel 3 blocks from his office. He said, do not go back to your apartment. She has a key. She has already had 14 months of access. I don't want to know what else is in there that she left, or that she is coming back for. I checked in at 10:48. I paid in cash. Aaron had told me to. I sat on the edge of the hotel bed with my phone on the nightstand, and I watched it light up 7 times in 90 minutes. Delaney, Delaney, unknown number. Delaney, Rebecca, Delaney, unknown number. I did not answer any of them. I opened the Rebecca one, not to reply, to read. She had written, Marcus, Delaney told me what happened at the house today. I know how it looked. She is going through something. Can we talk? It's about Lily. I read it 3 times. Then I understood it. Rebecca was not writing to me to check on me. Rebecca was writing to me to establish, in text, that she had heard about the incident from Delaney secondhand that day and had reached out with concern. She was building the record. She was making the first entry in a timeline of her own innocence. I forwarded the text to Aaron with no comment. Aaron replied within 4 minutes. He wrote, do not respond. She is on the wall now. She just put herself there. I slept 4 hours. I woke up at 5:13 in the morning. I sat on the edge of the hotel bed in my clothes from the day before, and I did the thing I had been avoiding since I walked out of the Colonial on Merritt Lane. I opened my daughter's most recent text message thread on my phone. It was on my kid line, the one I only used with her, on her little tablet. She had sent me, 3 days earlier, a picture of a drawing she had made at school. The drawing was of a house, a 4-bedroom colonial with a red front door. Underneath it, she had written, in her wobbly 6-year-old handwriting, Aunt Delaney's new house, where I get my own room. Delaney had already told my daughter about the house. I looked at that drawing for a long time. Then I forwarded it to Erin. I wrote, "She's been telling my daughter. This is from Thursday." Aaron wrote back at 5:41. He wrote, "Marcus, that's not just fraud. That's a plan to move your daughter into that house. Come to the office. Bring the tablet." I went to the office. I brought the tablet. Yvonne was already there. She had been there since 4. She had, in the 11 hours since I had last seen her, built what she called the timeline. It was a spreadsheet with 62 rows on it. Every row was a dated action, cross-referenced to the document that confirmed it, going back 19 months. The first row was 3 months before the divorce finalized. On that date, Rebecca had opened a joint checking account at a small credit union in a town neither of us lived in. My name was on it. My signature. I had never signed it. The last row was the pre-approval on the house. Yvonne said, "This was a 19-month operation. I want to say that out loud so you hear it. They started planning this before you were even divorced." Delaney was in charge of the ground game, the access, the paperwork. Rebecca was in charge of the information. Preston, whoever he is the money. My guess is he thinks he is buying a house at a discount with a man he has never met. My guess is he does not know he is being set up too, but we can figure that out later. Aaron said, "The closing is Thursday now. They moved it up. I found out an hour ago. Someone at the title office is nervous. They filed a rush request." I said, "Why?" Aaron said, "Because Delaney knows something is wrong. You walked out yesterday and you didn't answer her calls, and she is smart. She is very smart. She is trying to close before you can move." I said, "Then we move faster." We moved faster. By 11 that morning, Aaron had filed an ex parte motion for a temporary restraining order against Delaney based on the identity theft evidence. By 1, a judge had signed it. By 2, a copy had been served on Delaney at her apartment by a sheriff's deputy, while a second deputy took a statement from her building's front desk clerk about who she had been seen coming and going with over the last 3 months. By 4, Aaron had a call from the DA's office. They wanted to talk. They had, they said, been sitting on a separate complaint from a bank about an unusual pattern of applications in the same name over the past several months, and my file had just cross-referenced. By 6, a detective named Ruiz called me. She said, "Mr. Holloway, I understand your attorney has spoken with our office. I would like to meet with you tonight if possible. I am also going to be honest with you. We would like to arrange a controlled contact with Miss Sutter. She has been trying to reach you all afternoon. If you are willing, we would like her to succeed in reaching you. In a very specific setting. With very specific instructions. And with an officer in the room." I said where, Ruiz said, "The parking lot of the coffee place on Kessler Boulevard. Tomorrow morning. 8:42. I said, "That is where she called me from yesterday." Ruiz said, "That is where you are going to call her from tomorrow. And you are going to tell her you would like to talk. And you are going to tell her that you have thought about it, and you understand, and you want to make this right for the family, and you would like her to explain how the paperwork is supposed to work, so you know what you are signing at the closing. Can you do that?" I said, "I can do that." I did that. At 8:42 the next morning, I sat in the parking lot of a coffee place I had not been to in 14 months, and I called Delaney. She answered on the first ring. She said, "Marcus, thank God. Thank God. I have been sick with worry. Where are you?" I told her where I was. She said, "I'll be there in 20 minutes. Don't move." She was there in 17. Detective Ruiz was in the back of my car, lying flat on the floor of the rear seat under a wool blanket with a body camera running and an earpiece in. She had asked me, before Delaney arrived, to remember one thing. She had said, "Let her talk. Don't lead her. Don't accuse her. Ask her what she thinks you should do. Let her tell you." Delaney got in the passenger seat. She was wearing the camel coat. She smelled like she always smelled. The vanilla thing, the shampoo from college, the smell of a person my daughter had drawn a heart above. She said, "Marcus, I am so sorry. I am so, so sorry. Yesterday was a disaster. Preston is a nightmare." He forced me into that. He said if I didn't play along, he would. I said, "Delaney, just tell me what's happening." She looked at me. She looked at me for a long moment. And then, because she was very smart, and because she was also very tired, and because I think in that moment she believed she still had a chance to walk out of the car and finish what she had started, she made her one mistake. She said, "Marcus, listen to me. The house is not the point. Preston is not the point. The point is that when Rebecca and I set this up, we did it to protect Lily. You are not stable, Marcus. You have never been stable. You know that, and I know that. The custody hearing was going to give her to you half the week, and we could not let that happen. So we built something. We built a version of you on paper that the judge is going to see and understand. And you have two choices right now. You can walk into that courtroom on Monday and lose everything, or you can sign what I need you to sign this afternoon, and we tear up the mortgage and we make it all go away, and you get supervised visits twice a month, and Lily gets to grow up safe. That is what I am offering you. That is what I have been trying to offer you since yesterday. Take the deal, Marcus." I did not say anything. She said, "Marcus, say something." I said, "Delaney, say the part again about Rebecca." She said, "When Rebecca and I set this up." I said, "Thank you." The back door of the car opened. Detective Ruiz got out and walked around to the passenger side. She opened Delaney's door. She said, "Miss Sutter, please step out of the vehicle. You are under arrest." Delaney did not move for a second. She looked at me. Her face did the flat, pleasant thing. Then she got out of the car. She did not resist. She did not cry. She let Ruiz put the cuffs on her, and she looked at me over the top of the car and she said, quietly, "You had no idea, did you, about any of it?" I said no. She said, Rebecca said, you wouldn't. Then she got in the back of Ruiz's unmarked car, and Ruiz drove her away, and I sat in my car in the parking lot of the coffee place my daughter and I used to go to on Sundays, and I put my hands on the steering wheel at 10 and 2, the way my father had taught me the summer I turned 15, and my hands were still steady. My hands had not stopped being steady since Sunday afternoon. My hands were the calmest part of me. My hands were the part of me that had known before the rest of me had let itself know. I drove from the coffee lot to Aaron's office in a state I do not have a good word for. Not shock. Not relief. Something in between. The specific numbness that comes from watching a person you have known for 11 years remove her mask in the passenger seat of your own car and set it down neatly on the dashboard. Aaron was waiting for me. So was Yvonne. So, this time, was a woman I had not met yet, a lawyer named Priya Menon, who Aaron introduced as the family law specialist he had brought in overnight. She was small and brisk, and she did not smile. Priya said, "Mr. Holloway, I have read your file. I have watched 12 minutes of the body camera. I have one question. Do you want to keep your daughter? I said, yes, she said. Then I need you to do exactly what I say between now and 8:45 tomorrow morning. Not most of it. All of it. Are we clear? I said, clear, she said. Then here is the first thing. We are going to Lily's school. Right now. You and I. I am going to introduce myself to her teacher and to the principal. I am going to explain, in careful language, that there has been a family situation involving an aunt, that the aunt is not permitted contact with Lily until further notice, and that a court order to that effect is being filed this afternoon. I am going to ask them to confirm, in writing, that they will not release Lily to anyone other than you or her mother, and to notify you immediately if Delaney or anyone claiming to be sent by her attempts contact. I want that email in my hand today. Do you understand why? I said, because Delaney told my daughter about the house. Priya said, because Delaney told your daughter about the house. And because Delaney is very smart, and Delaney knows the hearing is Monday, and Delaney has a sister who has not been charged with anything, and if I were Delaney, I would be thinking right now about how to get Lily in front of a friendly adult before that hearing. So we are going to make sure that door is closed. Today, in writing. Do we go? I said, we go. We went. We were at the school by 11. The principal was a woman named Miss Aldana who had known Lily since kindergarten and who listened to Priya with a face that got quieter and quieter as Priya laid it out. When Priya was done, Miss Aldana said one thing. She said, Miss, Sutter picked Lily up from aftercare on Wednesday. She had a signed note from the mother. Nobody thought anything of it. She had picked her up before. I said, Wednesday of this week. Miss Aldana said, Wednesday of this week. They were gone for 45 minutes. Lily came back with a milkshake. Priya said, very quietly, I want a copy of that note today, and I want every previous instance you can pull from your records, every time Miss Sutter signed for that child. Miss, Aldana said, I will have it in your inbox by 3. She had it in Priya's inbox by 2:47. Delaney had signed Lily out of school 6 times in the past 4 months. Rebecca had, according to the records, never called ahead to authorize any of those pickups. Every time, the note had been produced at the front desk. Every time, the note had been written in what looked like Rebecca's handwriting. Priya, walking me out of the school parking lot, said, that handwriting is going in front of the judge on Monday. Because either your ex-wife wrote those notes or her sister forged them. And either answer helps us. I got back to Erin's office at 3:40. Yvonne had, in the meantime, been busy. She had pulled the surveillance footage from the credit union in the town neither Rebecca nor I lived in, from the day the joint account had been opened. She had a still frame of the woman who had walked in and signed my name. She turned her laptop around. The woman in the still frame was Delaney. She was wearing the camel coat. I looked at it for a long time. Yvonne said, she was wearing that coat yesterday, wasn't she? I said, she was wearing it this morning too. Erin said, she was going to wear it to the closing on Thursday. It was her costume. It was the coat she wore when she was being the version of herself who was buying a house with a man she loved. She has been wearing it in every documented act of fraud we can find. That is a woman who thinks she is not going to get caught. And a woman who thinks she is not going to get caught is a woman who does not plan for the moment she does. I said, which is why she talked in the car. Erin said, which is why she talked in the car. The custody hearing on Monday did not go the way Rebecca had planned. Erin walked into it with a 19-month timeline, a signed confession on body camera, a restraining order, a mortgage fraud indictment against Delaney, and an accompanying motion asking the court to consider Rebecca's role as an active participant in a conspiracy to manufacture false financial evidence for use in a family court proceeding. The judge did not rule on Rebecca's involvement that day. She said she would take it under advisement. But she did something else. She looked at Rebecca across the courtroom over the top of her glasses, and she said, "Miss Holloway, I have been on this bench for 18 years. I want to be clear with you. If the DA's office comes back to me in the next 30 days with a chargeable case, this custody arrangement is not going to look the way you filed it in July. Do you understand what I am telling you?" Rebecca understood. I got full custody of Lily 4 months later. Rebecca kept supervised weekends. The DA declined to charge Rebecca on the conspiracy count because the evidence, in the end, ran through Delaney, and Delaney would not name her sister on the stand no matter what they offered her. That is the one loyal thing Delaney did in 19 months. She kept her sister out of it. Delaney got 3 years. She will be out in 18 months. Preston Kettering, who was a real man with a real construction business and a real belief that he was buying a house from a business partner named Marcus, was not charged. He was, I heard through Aaron, extremely angry for a long time at everyone in the story, and the way that men are angry when they discover they have been played by someone they slept with. I moved out of the apartment where Delaney had a key. I bought a small house in a quiet neighborhood on the other side of the school district. It has 3 bedrooms. One for me. One for Lily. One that I keep empty, because I like to know that if someone comes to stay, they will not be sleeping in a room that used to belong to someone else. Lily started drawing new family pictures at school, and Delaney is not in them anymore. Nobody explained it to her. She stopped drawing her on her own. I never asked her why. I still see Rebecca at pickups and drop-offs. She is polite. She is careful. Neither of us has ever said Delaney's name to the other. There is a very specific kind of silence between two people who both know exactly what happened and know that saying it out loud will not change any of it. We stand in that silence twice a week at a curb. I have gotten used to it. I don't know if she has. The Colonial on Merritt Lane sold eventually to a young couple with a baby. I drove past it once, 6 months after everything, on a Sunday afternoon. There were pumpkins on the porch. The front door was still red. A woman I did not know was carrying a car seat up the walk. She looked happy. I did not stop. I thought about the drawing Lily had made. The little house with the red door, the wobbly writing underneath, and Delaney's new house where I get my own room. I thought about how close it had come. Not the fraud, not the money. That part I could have survived. What I almost lost was the drawing my daughter would have made a year later. And Delaney in the middle. Me at the edges. A little heart above the wrong head. I keep the drawing. It's in a drawer in my kitchen. I don't look at it often. I don't throw it out. I don't know what to do with something that was made in love and then turned into evidence. I don't think there is a right thing to do with it. I think you just put it in a drawer and you let it live there. There is a specific kind of betrayal that does not come from your enemy. It comes from the person who brought you lasagna, the person your daughter drew hearts above. The person who was in the room the night you moved into your first apartment as a single father, unpacking your coffee mugs while you sat on the floor and tried not to cry. That person is the one who can take you apart. Because that person is the one you were not watching. You were not watching them. because you were not supposed to have to. The thing that saved me was not that I was clever. I want to say that plainly. I am not particularly clever. I am a man who works in commercial insurance and drives a 9-year-old sedan and pays his bills on time. I did not outsmart anyone. What saved me was that when Delaney looped her arm through a stranger and called him her boyfriend, in an entryway I had walked into as a favor, my hand stayed steady on my car keys. My hand knew. My hand had been getting quieter for 14 months, and I had not been paying attention to it. My hand had noticed the lasagna. My hand had noticed the questions about the HR contact. My hand had noticed all of it. And when the moment finally came, my hand did the one thing my brain was too polite to do. It did not shake. If you have ever stood in a room and watched someone you trusted, someone you would have named as family without hesitating, casually and pleasantly say a sentence that rearranged everything you understood about the last several years of your life, then you already know the silence I am talking about. It does not feel loud. It feels like a hand becoming very calm around a car key. It feels like a small private noticing that your body was already doing the work your mind had refused to. Have you ever heard one sentence come out of someone's mouth and realized, in the space between two heartbeats, that the person you had been protecting inside your head for years was not the person standing in front of you? And if you look back at your own life now, right this minute, is there a person whose sudden kindness after a hard chapter of your life you have quietly been grateful for, and only just this second begun to wonder about the timing of, and if the answer is yes, whose face are you seeing? Tell me in the comments. Not their name, just the timing. When did they become kind? What had just happened to you? I read every one. And if this is the first story of mine you have found, subscribe. The next one goes up on Sunday, and it is about a phone call from a hospital that turned out not to be about the person on the other end of the line.